Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Billy Napier, the Florida Gators, get a very nice late addition to the 2024 recruiting class as former Texas commit four-star defensive lineman DeAndre Robinson commits to the Florida Gators, signed his national letter of intent for the Texas Longhorns. His defensive line coach heads to LSU. He asks for a release of his national letter of intent, gets that granted, and the Florida Gators come in and land a defensive lineman that I'll highlight has a ton of upside. This is a guy that's 6'4", 315 pounds. We're going to turn on the film in just a second. You'll see very athletic for his size and has 35-inch arms. I mean, there is a lot of untapped potential in a guy like Robinson's game that I think the Florida Gators are extremely excited to get into this program and start building around. And you take a look at what Billy Napier has done with this front seven just in that 2024 recruiting class alone. You add a guy like LJ McCray. Now you add Robinson on the inside of that defensive line. Myles Graham, Aiden Childs, arguably the best linebacker class that you saw signed in the SEC last year. If you're a Florida Gator fan, I think you're extremely excited about what Billy Napier is doing on the recruiting trail, specifically at those positions you wanted to see take that step in that front seven of the defense. Want to get into Robinson, talk a little bit about what he brings to this Florida Gators defense. Before we do, just want to say, as always, thank you to you guys. I've had a blast breaking down these Florida Gator commitments in the transfer portal, on the high school recruiting trail. We're ramping back up for the 2025 class. The amount of support you guys continue to show, it really does mean a lot. Many of you guys know I love talking recruiting, talking about all of these commitments. Cannot thank you guys enough for all the support. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into DeAndre Robinson, who, again, you talk about, when you first want to talk about Robinson, I think we want to talk about what kind of player you're probably going to get for the Florida Gators on that inside of that defensive line. And I'm going to say something that I don't think should be taken the wrong way. This is a guy that is not necessarily going to, in my opinion, he very well could, and prove me wrong, he's not a guy that's necessarily going to stuff the stat sheet, if you will. Not a guy that's going to have 10.5 tackles for a loss, 12 sacks on the year, but he's a guy that is going to play a massive role in this Florida Gators defense in terms of letting people around him get to work, right? Winning at the point of attack, standing up double teams, eating double teams up, so those linebackers can play relatively free. And you have a guy like Myles Graham and Aiden Childs coming in this class. If you can keep those linebackers free and have those big bodies on the inside that can win at the point of attack and kind of two gap and eat those double teams, that's how you get those linebackers. That's how you get the best out of the linebacker, right? What's a linebacker's best friend is a very good defensive line that's winning and controlling the line of scrimmage. And I think that's exactly what DeAndre Robinson is bringing to this Florida Gators team. He's a guy that flashes some phenomenal athleticism. So it makes me almost want to take back my comment about him not stuffing the stat sheet. He's a guy that at 6'4", 315 pounds, we're going to turn on the film, is a very good athlete and has very good feet for his size. The thing that I have circled is 35-inch arms. And there's a reason why the NFL and college football programs value length. And he's a guy that you see him win with his physical dominance a little bit more than his length. What I'm most excited for with a guy like DeAndre Robinson is he gets into this Florida Gators program. They take a look at him and say, hey, you got 35-inch arms. We got to teach you how to use those hands and kind of use it to your advantage, because you didn't really see that much at the high school level. It was kind of a raw cat that just used his big body and athleticism to win, which is not rare at the high school level. But I think if you're Florida, you're most excited to see him get polished up and see what he can be in the next 2 to 3 years for this Florida Gators program. Want to turn on the film. A couple of things that you're going to note on the film is, one, a really good athlete for his size. And I know we already said that, but you see him get off the ball extremely quickly for someone who's 315 pounds, really, really powerful hands. You just want to see him use those hands more, right? It gets behind the backfield. Again, him moving laterally is really impressive. I mean, you're going to see him make a few plays in open space. I mean, a little swim move there, really nimble feet. He's kind of like a dancing bear, if you will, right? 6'4", 315 pounds, moves extremely well. Here you're going to see him make a play in open space. Again, moving very well for someone who's 315 pounds. The one thing or two things I have on my notes that I would like to see him maybe just get a little bit better on is playing with that low pad level, right? When you're 6'4", 315 pounds. You want to make sure you're playing with good leverage. And it's hard to do sometimes when you're that tall, but he's a guy that if you get him into this program, teach him how to play with his pads, teach him how to use his 35-inch arms. He's a guy that I think has a ton of upside. And I'm kind of leaning towards the evaluation of On3 and ESPN of him being a top 20 defensive lineman. Because you see the physical traits that he brings to the table is probably what excites you the most. And you take a look at this Florida class in 2024 and to kind of highlight what they've done. I know it was a frustrating end to the Florida Gators recruiting class, obviously with a few late flip commitments. If you're a Florida Gators fan, I think this was a really strong class, right? It's a top 15 class in the country with only 15 commitments coming in. I think 16 with a guy like Robinson coming into the fold. But most importantly, you kept hold of the guys that are going to be game changers for this Florida Gators program over the next couple of years. Obviously, guys like DJ Lagway and LJ McCray, but it was kind of centered on some positions that you wanted to see the Florida Gators address, right? I mean, you look at that front seven, LJ McCray, the number 2 defensive lineman in the class. You look at the linebacker play. You have Miles Grahams and Aiden Childs, 2 of the best linebackers in the 2023 class. And you continue to scroll down, you sprinkle in some really nice, as I zoom in a little bit more for you guys, some really nice guys on the defensive line. Brian Taylor coming from JUCO. This is a guy that is absolutely rocked up and looks like he's going to have the ability to play early for the Florida Gators. You continue to scroll down. You got a 6'5", 390-pound Mekhi Boreu, who Georgia tried to flip late in the process. And if Georgia likes a defensive lineman, you kind of trust that he's a pretty good defensive lineman. If I'm a Florida Gator fan, I'm looking at this class, and again, I can see why you'd be a little bit frustrated in terms of some of those late commitments, but a smaller class allowing Florida to get active in the transfer portal, not only in this cycle, but the next cycle as well. We kind of said this, right? This Florida Gators team needed more experience coming into this roster, and a smaller class in 2024 allows them to get a little bit more aggressive and have a little bit more numbers to attack the transfer portal. Really, really nice finishing touch for Billy Napier in this 2024 class, a guy in Dontre Robinson that really excited about what he can be for this Florida Gators defense. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.